Let's talk about contingency contracts. Now, all contracts, almost all contracts in Texas have some sort of contingency, financing or something. Now, when you hear people talk about a contingency offer or a contingency contract, they're usually talking about a situation in which a buyer has another property that they have to sell in order to buy the property that they're buying. And we use this form, it's called the Addendum. It's called the Addendum for Sale of Other Property by Buyers. The reason I have to read it is we never call it that. Everybody calls it the Contingency Addendum. Here's how it works. If a buyer needs to sell their property before they purchase another property, or if they just really want to sell their property and make the deal contingent on them selling that other property, they'll use this addendum. And what it says is, in paragraph A of this addendum, that the contract is contingent on the buyer's receipt of the proceeds. You'll notice receipt of the proceeds is in bold, and that's really important. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's contingent on them getting the money from the sale of their house on or before a certain date so that they can buy the other house that they want. Now, why is it in bold, receipt of the proceeds? Well, sometimes when a buyer buys a house or a seller sells a house, the funding doesn't happen until the day after closing or sometimes a few days after closing. So this contract makes it contingent on the buyer's actual receipt of the proceeds of the sale of their other property. Now, what does it go on to say? It goes on to say that if they don't actually receive the proceeds of the sale from their other property, it says the contract automatically terminates. And this is so important to pay attention to, because unlike so many other contingencies in the contract, it doesn't give the buyer or the seller an option to terminate. It says it automatically terminates if the buyer doesn't sell their property on time. So it's really important to pay attention to that. Now, they note that you should not have a date in that paragraph that's later than paragraph 9 of the contract. In other words, you shouldn't have a contingency of a sale of other property to happen after when you're supposed to buy the property that's under contract. So I always recommend make sure that you leave 1 or 2 days cushion between the time that the property that's contingent sells and then the next one in the chain. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, now paragraph B addresses what happens if a buyer has a contingency contract and then some other buyer comes along and wants to buy the property. There are ways in this addendum where the seller can actually kick the first buyer out, or optionally, that first buyer can waive their contingency and say, okay, we don't need to sell our other house anymore. We will waive the contingency and it's no longer contingent on the sale of this other property. That can be done just by giving notices. Those notices are promulgated by the associations and the Texas Real Estate Commission, and I can help you with any of that if it comes up. It's a one-pager, but it's a pretty complicated and important form for contingency offers. By the way, if you have any questions on how this works, or if you're working on this and you need a little help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My name is Jay Robbins. I'm the broker at Robbins Real Estate Group. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.